Jake shuffled through the crowded hallways of his high school, his hoodie pulled low over his face. He avoided eye contact with anyone, hoping no one would notice the long scar stretching from his left eyebrow to the corner of his mouth. The scar was a souvenir from a childhood accident, a fall off his bike that left him with stitches, pain, and a lingering sense of shame. He often heard whispers behind his back. "It's like he's from a horror movie," someone had once muttered. Jake's heart ached every time he caught glimpses of his reflection. One afternoon, Jake sat alone on a bench at the park. His head hung low as he stared at his sneakers, lost in the usual spiral of self-conscious thoughts. That's when he heard a gruff but warm voice. "Nice day, isn't it?" Jake glanced up to see an older man leaning on a cane, his right leg encased in a prosthetic. The man's face bore several scars, including one deep groove running across his cheek. Despite his rugged appearance, his smile was inviting. "Yeah, I guess," Jake mumbled, pulling his hood tighter. The man chuckled. "You're hiding something." "I know the look." Jake's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" The man sat down beside him, tapping his cane lightly on the ground. "The hood, the posture. I've been there. I've got my fair share of battle scars." He motioned to the scars on his face and his missing leg. Jake couldn't help but ask, "What happened to you?" The man leaned back and took a deep breath. "I was a soldier. Lost this leg in combat and got these scars from shrapnel. Back then, I thought they'd define me, make me weak, broken, or ugly. But I learned something along the way." Jake tilted his head, intrigued despite himself. The man continued, "Every scar tells a story. This one here," he pointed to a scar on his forehead, "saved my unit when we were ambushed. My leg. It reminds me I survived against impossible odds. These marks don't make me less, they make me more. They're proof of my resilience." Jake hesitated before asking, "But what if people stare? What if they judge you?" The man smiled kindly. "People will always have opinions, son. But you have the power to decide what your scars mean to you. Are they marks of shame, or badges of survival? Every time I look at mine, I see strength, courage, and the life I've fought to live. What do you see when you look at yours?" Jake looked down, his fingers grazing the faint line on his cheek. He thought of how his parents had rushed him to the hospital, how his friends had supported him during his recovery, and how he'd gotten back on his bike despite his fear. I never thought of it that way," he admitted softly. The man nodded. "It takes time, but one day, you'll see it. Wear your scar with pride, Jake. It's not a flaw, it's a testament to what you've overcome." Jake sat with the man a while longer, listening to his stories of bravery and hardship. By the time they parted ways, something inside Jake had shifted. The next day at school, Jake walked down the hallway with his hood off. His scar was visible, but for the first time, he didn't feel the urge to hide. When someone stared, he met their gaze with quiet confidence. The story teaches us that the scars, whether physical or emotional, are not signs of weakness but proof of survival. They tell stories of courage, resilience, and growth. Embracing your imperfections can transform how you see yourself and how the world sees you. True strength lies not in hiding your scars but in owning them with pride, for they are the marks of a life lived boldly.